Almost every season in the NFL has a surprise team or two who not only exceed their expectations coming into the season, but greatly improve upon their performance from the season before. And naturally, some teams do it better than others. Today, we will be counting down the 10 teams who rose from the NFL dead the best, with the biggest turnaround from one season to the next during the Super Bowl era. Now, rest assured, we will not simply be doing this by their win totals, because this would be the list, and that is a list that any old fool can read off and be done with. Nope, we're using this channel's metric for giving proper evaluations to NFL teams, C-score, and these teams are going to be ranked by the difference in their C-score between these two seasons. As usual, a deeper explanation for C-score is available in the description of this video. Now, this is going to be a slightly longer but necessary intro, so please bear with me. Back to this list, we can tell you right now that the teams tied for first will not appear in the top 10. The 2008 Miami Dolphins certainly improved from the season before, but their 11-5 record vastly overestimates their overall performance, and their C-score is barely above water at 0.772. On the other hand, the 07 Dolphins' 1-15 record vastly underestimates their overall performance, with a relatively respectable C-score of negative 23.623. This C-score change of 24.395 is good, but not nearly good enough for the top 10. The 1999 Colts are in a somewhat similar boat. Their 13-3 record is better than their 16.181 C-score, and the 98 team's 3-13 record is worse than their negative 16.108 C-score. These guys are a lot closer to the top 10 with a 32.199 change, but still not quite there. And if you don't know by now, there's no way the 2012 Colts team are here. One of modern football's most fraudulent teams, they have a negative C-score despite being 11-5. The season before was worse naturally, but the C-score change in the end was only 20.697. Some teams weren't eligible to make this list. You needed to have a losing record in year 1 and a winning record in year 2. So teams like the 1985 Bears, 1998 Vikings, 1991 Redskins, and 1969 Vikings won't appear. On the other hand, losing teams that improved but stayed losing teams or only reached 500, such as the 1976 Bears, 2010 Lions, 1974 Oilers, and 1967 Giants miss out as well. Thank you for joining us today and for sticking out the intro. It's time to count these teams down. Kicking things off at number 10 is yet another Indianapolis Colts team, but a worthy one this time from 1987. They went 9-6 and led the league in scoring, notching a C-score of 10.202. This, in contrast to their 3-13 performance in 1986, where they were outscored by 171 points and landed a negative 27.226. Their change in C-score was substantial, at 34.428. In their first game after the replacement player portion of the 1987 season, the Colts defeated the Patriots to even their record at 3-3. Then, on Halloween, they made a trade for future Hall of Fame running back Eric Dickerson. In the next 9 games, Dickerson rushed for over 1,000 yards, and the Colts won the AFC East, finding themselves in the playoffs for the first time since they moved to Indianapolis, and the first time period in 10 years. They were tied at halftime in Cleveland, but the second half proved their undoing, ultimately falling 38-21. At number 9 are the 2001 Chicago Bears, who stunned the NFL on their way to a 13-3 record while leading the NFL in fewest points allowed. Their C-score of 21.25 dwarfs their performance from 2000, where they went 5-11 with a C-score of negative 17.02. This escalation of their performance gives them a C-score change of 38.652. After losing on opening day to the defending Super Bowl champion Baltimore Ravens, the Bears went on a tear the rest of the way, only losing 2 games to the Packers and going 13-0 against the rest of their schedule. 7 times they allowed 10 or fewer points, and only once did they allow more than 24. The Bears' defense and the Rams' offense was looking like the ultimate clash in the NFC title game. Except that the Bears couldn't get past the Eagles in the divisional round. They proved their one-year wonder status with a deflating 4-12 record the following season. The 2006 New Orleans Saints come in at number 8, with what was to date the most successful season in franchise history. They went 10-6 and recorded a C-score of 10.236. This followed their Hurricane Katrina-inspired disaster in 2005, where they went 3-13 with a horrible C-score of negative 28.469. In all, their improvement was by 38.705 points. The Saints improved across the board in 2006, bringing in Sean Payton at head coach, Drew Brees at quarterback, drafting Reggie Bush in the first round, and drastically improving their defensive performance from 28th in points allowed in 2005 to 13th in just one season. They won the NFC South for the first time, and only their 3rd ever division title, and they advanced to the NFC Championship game for the first time ever. An inspiring season fell that day in a loss to the Chicago Bears, but this only proved to be the beginning of a great run in New Orleans. We've got another team with Drew Brees at quarterback sitting at number 7 in the 2004 San Diego Chargers. They were sublime this season, going 12-4 and driving home a C-score of 21.811. A 4-12 disaster the season before, with a C-score of negative 18.307, left little hope that this could happen. They improved by more than 40 points at 40.118. The Chargers were looking very Chargery early on, sitting at 3-3. They then proceeded to win 9 of their last 10 games, with the only loss coming on the road in overtime to win the AFC West and streak their way into the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. Although this team was strong from top to bottom, with 2 All-Pros on both offense and defense, they were bit by the overtime bug once again in the wildcard round against the New York Jets. This was the beginning of some good times for the Charger franchise, but it was also the beginning of Chargering. We end the top half of the countdown with the 2008 Baltimore Ravens at number 6. Their 11-5 record was unflattering, as this team was excellent against a tough schedule, more closely reflected in their 24.901 C-score. That score was down to negative 17.205 during a 5-11 season in 2007, giving them a stellar improvement of 42.106. The Ravens had been seesawing for a few seasons, 6-10 in 2005 and 13-3 in 2006 before this 5-11 and 11-5 run. Their win difference was actually higher between 05 and 06, but the 07 season was so bad that their improvement in 08 was more stark. Baltimore made the playoffs as the 6th seed, but they took care of business against the aforementioned Paper Tiger Miami Dolphins in the wildcard round before advancing to the AFC Championship game. Their arch rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, awaited them, and the Ravens fell to them for a 3rd time in 4 months. We have our first and, spoiler alert, only Super Bowl champion on the list. The 1999 St. Louis Rams were simply a dominant unit, going 13-3, including a 13-0 record in multiple score games, and gathering a C-score of 33.597. The only reason they're not even higher is because the 1998 season, despite a lowly 4-12 record, wasn't as bad as it looked, with their C-score coming in at only negative 8.91. Their total improvement sits at 42.507. The 1990s were not kind to the Rams, so coming into 1999, there was no reason to think anything would be different. Then the greatest show on turf was born, and they improved their scoring output by more than 15 points per game. But their defense was also greatly improved, rising from tied for 24th in points allowed all the way to 4th. Then in the playoffs, they proved they could win close games too, taking down the Buccaneers in a defensive slugfest to make the Super Bowl, then making the most consequential defensive stop in NFL history to win it. The most recent team on the countdown are the 2019 San Francisco 49ers, taking the 4th spot. At 13-3 and in the top 10 in points scored, points allowed, and strength of schedule, their C-score was robust at 29.769. 2018 represented more difficult days, with a 4-12 record and a negative 14.634 C-score. In total, they rose by a score of 44.403. The Niners jumped out to an 8-0 start in 2019, doubling their win total from the season before, with half the season still remaining. They improved their point differential by 262 points, and they did so against a more difficult schedule. They handled their business with ease in the playoffs and advanced to the Super Bowl. They brought a 10-point lead into the 4th quarter of that game. Then the world witnessed the second of what would become 3 Shanahanings, losing that game and missing their opportunity to surpass the 1999 Rams as the best single-season turnaround to end with a Super Bowl title. The 1975 Baltimore Colts rank 3rd on this list, but they are the most impressive entry. They went 10-4 after a 1-4 start and won the AFC East while carrying a 20.871 C-score. In 1974, they were a miserable 2-14, including a winless home record and a C-score of negative 25.387. In total, they leapt up by a monumental number, 46.258. It's not just the 9-game winning streak that makes this the most impressive entry, it's the era in which they did it. No free agency, no salary cap, no illusion of parity, and only 14 games with which to work. Outside of the draft and some occasional trades, teams mostly ran it back year to year. The Colts did make a change at head coach though, bringing in franchise icon Ted Marchibroda. However, they ran into the same problem every other team ran into at some point during the 1970s, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they lost to them in the playoffs. The 1975 Colts held the top spot in these rankings for nearly 4 decades before somebody finally surpassed them. The silver medal belongs to the 2017 Los Angeles Rams. In their second season after returning to LA from St. Louis, the Rams unearthed success they hadn't seen in over a decade, going 11-5 and locking down a C-score of 21.221. Their first season back in LA wasn't so great, going 4-12 with a paltry negative 27.021 C-score. They made an improvement of 48.242 points. Like so many other entries on this list, a new head coach provided the spark for this kind of improvement. The Rams hired Sean McVay at only 30 years old to lead the turnaround, and lead it he did. The Rams improved across the board, but their jump from last in the league in scoring to first is virtually unheard of. They weren't yet ready for the biggest stage of all, falling in their first playoff game to the Falcons after a 13-year absence, but they had announced their arrival in a major way. In fact, they just missed the top spot in this countdown. They just missed it to this squad, the 2013 Kansas City Chiefs, taking the number 1 spot by virtue of their 11-5 record and their 14.544 C-score. Now that C-score wasn't as high as the 2017 Rams, but the depths from which they rose was. In 2012, they were the NFL's worst team, going 2-14 with a dreadful 34.294 C-score. The Rams improved by 48.242 points. The Chiefs improved by 48.838. And looky here, we've got another team with a new head coach. After 13 seasons at the helm of the Philadelphia Eagles, Andy Reid was brought in to change the rapidly declining fortunes of the Kansas City Chiefs, and change it he did. Alex Smith was brought in at quarterback, supplemented by other roster fortifications. By week 3, the Chiefs had won more games than they did the season before, and funny enough, they did so by beating those same Philadelphia Eagles that Andy Reid once coached. They couldn't take the division title from the Denver Broncos, but they made the playoffs as a wild card. Like the Rams before them though, they weren't quite ready for the big stage, holding a 38-10 third quarter lead before falling to the Colts in Indianapolis. The good news for the Chiefs, they have yet to have a losing season since, and as you may have heard, they've gathered a Super Bowl trophy or two. Looking back at the original list here, we can go ahead and cross two more teams off of it, the 2016 Cowboys and the 2004 Steelers. The Cowboys were very close, but their 13-3 record wasn't all that met the eye, and the 03 Steelers, despite a 6-10 record, had too high a C-score for their improvement to make the top 10. Here is that top 10 as a whole. Although there were some very close instances, there was never a jump in more than 2 points of C-score between any two entries. The Chiefs edged out the top spot by less than 3/5 of a point over the Rams and became the first team to undergo a better improvement than the 75 Colts. The Rams and the Colts are the only franchises to appear twice, with both the Colts entries coming from before the advent of unrestricted free agency. That is mighty impressive, and quite honestly, a massive improvement over how the Colts generally appear on this channel. They are quite a roller coaster all unto themselves. Thank you so much for watching to this point in the video. If you liked it, give it a like, share it around some, and take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure to ding the bell as well for notifications on all future videos. What did you all think? Do you believe that the 1999 Colts and the 2008 Dolphins must make this list based solely on their raw win total improvement? Or do you side more with C-score in acknowledging that a team's record isn't its sole identifying factor of quality? Do the Chiefs deserve the top spot, or should that have gone to someone else? Who else didn't make the list that you think should have? I would love to hear from you. Please do sound off on any of your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you again for joining us, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.